would just keep one mic. That we don't even just use everyone use the podium here. Is that okay?
Whatever people want.
I think
mean,
it'll be
everyone just uses
confusing. I think it'll just be confusing.
Okay.
Do you want me to help you move that?
No, I'm just trying to look for a good spot. Where did you put that mic? And I have that microphone down at the bottom. We don't have to want this. You want this or?
I don't think so. If everyone could take your seat, we're going to get started. Just a quick word as we get started. Exit doors there, and out on the other side. Bathrooms right out to the left. And it's very meaningful. Thank you, everyone who's come here to honor Sid Weiss. I'm Rabbi Alex, Cantor Frank, and we're honored to be able to officiate today. We're going to begin with the honored guard. In these times of sorrow, we begin where our tradition takes us, which is often to the Psalms. I'd like to recite Psalm 23, one of our most beloved of all of our biblical prayers. In this way, we connect Sid's legacy to the legacy of generations and generations that came before him. If you're familiar with English, please join with me. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Cantor Frank will recite it in the Hebrew.
Adonai roi lo echsar v'nadeshen yal b'tzeni amem menuchot yitnachaleni nafshi shovev yamcheni v'maglet tzedek leman shemo Kam ki eleich v'kitzal mavet oirara ki ata imadi shiftecha u'mishantecha hema yenachamuni tarok lefanai shulchan neked surerai Deshantav Hashem Roshi Kosi Revaya Ach Tov V'Chesed Yedefuni Goyimei Chayai V'Shaviti B'Veit Adonai Leorach Yamim.
Even several months later, it is still a shock that we don't have Sid with us. He's a very important part of our synagogue family, and of course of his family and of our greater community. Our synagogue Shir Shalom would not be here without his efforts, and so many other places because of his dedication and duty to the larger community. Today, because of the passing of a couple of months, we've had an opportunity to grieve a little bit, but it's still a hard day. And it's a day that we're going to have some remembrances and tears, but hopefully some laughter too. Sid lived a really good life. We wish he still had more time. We wish he was still among us. We wish he was still out golfing, even in the rain. But we also are extremely appreciative of the beautiful life he lived. And you're going to have a taste of it today, and afterwards we'll have a chance to share stories in our social hall. Because Sid, at least for me, is someone who always brought a smile to my face. He always had such determination and love and humor. And I also will learn about him on the golf course. Linda told me about a whole other side of him. I had no idea. I didn't get to know that part of Sid. But we're going to get a little of this. So we're going to have family members, colleagues, golf buddies to be able to share his stories. We're going to begin with Jolie, who has a reading to open us up.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. It's so great to see so many faces. Gosh, that I haven't seen in so long. I really appreciate you all coming out here. I am going to start off the festivities here of all the folks coming and talking about Dad with some of his own memories. So we asked him to talk about what he wanted us to remember about his life. We expected just a couple words, but he talked and talked and talked, gave us more details than we expected at times, so we tried to put down some of his words here to share today. So this is about Sidney Norman Weiss, husband, father, grandfather, friend, and these highlights were provided by Sid. So Sid was born May 7th, 1944, and he died December 7th in 2023, so he was 79. His Hebrew name was Nachman Simcha, and he grew up in Poughkeepsie, New York. He graduated from Arlington High School in 1962, and he was voted most valuable basketball player in the Jewish Center Basketball League and made the All-State New York JCC basketball team. So that was a highlight that he remembers. He also played saxophone in the high school marching band and the jazz band. He has one brother, Howard Michael Weiss, aka Mickey, and his sister-in-law, Irene Weiss. He is married to Linda Carmen Hannon Weiss. They were married on December 30th, 1967, and have been married for 56 years. And they met at a fraternity sorority party, and it was interest at first sight, he said. Sid was the president of Alpha Phi Omega Service Fraternity. He had two daughters, Jolie Renee, born, that's me, 1969, and my partner, Dane. He wanted people to be aware of that. And Rebecca Weiss Glasso was born in 1973, and her husband, Greg Glasso, front. And have two great grandkids, Julia Grace Glasso and Ian Carl Glasso. He went to college at the University of Buffalo to become an accountant, and he made a point in this. He graduated third in his class. He was also a member of the UB marching band. He passed the CPA exam on his first try, to the chagrin of relatives and friends who they had to study a lot. So it really bothered them that he didn't study and was out partying or probably golfing or doing something. And then his first job was in New York City at Haskins and Sells. And he was drafted into the Army during the Vietnam War and became a first lieutenant and assigned to the engineering division, of which he knew absolutely nothing. He said if he went into accounting, he would have to go into the infantry division, so he opted for trying to take apart and put together vehicles, many of which had leftover parts at the end. During his time in the military, they were stationed at Fort Dix, New Jersey, and he managed to avoid being deployed to Vietnam and still figured out a way to play golf and baseball while in the military. And then he spent 4 years in the Army Reserves. He moved to Buffalo in 1969 and started working at Schwartz, Brody, and Brutman CPAs in 1972, and then eventually rose to become managing partner at Brody and Weiss CPAs, And this firm eventually became Arcara, Weiss, Zuccarelli, and Urbanic and Lender CPAs, and was the third largest local accounting firm in Buffalo at the time. And Sid was active in the community. He was treasurer of Temple Sinai for many years, treasurer of the Holocaust Resource Center, treasurer at Shir Shalom here, treasurer at the Westwood Country Club for many years, and was on the board of Independent Health in Buffalo, and chairman of the accounting committee. His passions, I think we all realize, he really loves sports. Especially golf. He was an avid golfer. And for those Arizona folks that might be here or listening, that was the only exception was the 17th hole at Arrowhead. I think many foul words were probably said at that hole. But he probably loved his golf buddies even more than the actual golfing. He also enjoyed baseball and basketball. He loved attending sporting events with his daughter Jolie, had season tickets to the UB football and basketball games, and also went to many ASU games when he was out in Arizona. He also liked to place dollar bets with his Canadian golf buddies, and while he bitched and moaned when he lost, he just enjoyed the banter. He also enjoyed duplicate bridge. He became a life master, and also the occasional poker nights. He also enjoyed camping and traveling the world with his family, especially traveling the country by trailer with his parents and then with his children was a highlight, along with his trip to South Africa. And most of all, he loved kibitzing with his buddies. So that was Sid in his words, mostly. Thank you.
We're now going to hear from Sid's brother, Howard, or Mikey? Mickey. Oh, keep getting it wrong. Your father was also called Mikey, isn't it? No.
He was Mike, yeah.
Mikey.
Well, as the person here who knew Sid the longest, having been with him a few days after his birth, as well as the day before he died, I hope you will excuse me if my talk runs a few minutes over the time limit I was allotted. My brother Sid was a scrawny kid, skin and bones, with protruding ribs and a very dark brown suntan. Our parents sometimes described him as Mahatma Gandhi. And he'd never reached the 150-pound minimum required by our father to play on our high school football team. I might just add that he did exceed that later on. He was only a year and 9 months younger than I was, so we were constant playmates, shooting hoops, throwing around a baseball, ice skating, sledding, bike riding, exploring woods, climbing on rocks, and fishing. When we fought, he always managed to slip, wriggle, and squirm out of harm's way. He also used this skill to escape our father whenever Dad attempted to administer discipline to him or throw Sid into the water at the beach. Sid and I played the saxophone together in our high school marching and swing bands, and he went on to play in college here with the UB band. We were both lifeguards at a swimming pond where one day Sid saved a toddler when he located her underwater and administered CPR. Sid was a talented and graceful athlete, especially with sports requiring the coordination and finesse to accurately hit or throw a ball. He was an infielder on multiple Little League baseball teams, and he was a starter on the Poughkeepsie Jewish Center basketball team that won a New York State championship. In high school, he was resourceful in pursuing his budding interest in bowling and golf. During study halls, and probably many other classes as well, he would sneak out of school to go to a nearby bowling alley where he was employed as a pin sitter and could bowl for free. And this was back before the days that there were automatic pin setters. He had to stand behind the alley and watch out for his life. In the summers, He worked as a caddy at several golf courses and spent hours bushwhacking in the rough to find abandoned golf balls for his own use. Once, when our father insisted that Sid try over and over again to hit across a water hole, his heart sank, along with the hard-earned balls that each time they landed in the pond. As most of you know, Sid loved games and was very competitive. There were many gouges in our family ping pong table from a paddle that Sid slammed down when he lost a game. I'll let others here describe Sid's not calm demeanor and not genteel language on the golf course when he made a bad shot. But suffice it to say, there are scars on many trees on golf courses in Buffalo and Arizona where they had been struck in anger by Sid with one of his clubs. Sid also made sure that his big brother did not get a swelled head about my athletic abilities. He never let me forget that he was at a high school football scrimmage game when I caused the opposing quarterback to fumble the ball, which I then picked up and ran with until my own teammates tackled me because I was going the wrong way. On another occasion, after my crew team had just won the regional championship rowing regatta on the Hudson River, Sid entered our locker room in the boathouse where we were celebrating our victory. He loudly offered his expert opinion that we only won because our lane happened to be the one which had the most favorable river current. His opinion was not warmly shared by my teammates, who chased Sid out of the boathouse with the intent to grab him and throw him into the river. However, once again, his wily Houdini-like escape skills came in handy, and he was able to elude their grasp and avoid the dunking he deserved. Sid and I got our love of traveling from our parents, who took us on wonderful trips every summer, pulling a small camping trailer to visit national and state parks all around the US, Canada, and Mexico. I can still hear my mother, our mother actually, yelling at Sid to stop and reading a comic book in the back seat of the car and to look out the window as we traveled along, because she said, "You may never be here to see this amazing scenery again." We now say the same thing when our grandkids are looking at their cell phones. Sid's goal, which I think he achieved, was to throw and catch a baseball in all of the then 48 states. Over the following years, Sid and I continued to have many travel adventures together, along with Linda and Irene and our children. Our families met at Lake Placid to ski, and in North Carolina to camp, and to go whitewater rafting on the Nantahala River. Sid and Linda toured around Italy with Irene and I. Sid went with his family on African safaris to Hawaii, Alaska, Vietnam, and many other places. Sid and Linda visited us almost every winter for over 20 years at our home in Puerto Morelos, Mexico. One year, Sid wanted to be assured that he wouldn't miss the Super Bowl game if he was at our Mexican home, which he knew did not have a good TV reception. We told him we would go to a local bar and watch the game, not remembering that the bars would be closed that Sunday because it was a Mexican election day when serving liquor was prohibited. To see the game, Sid and I decided to rig up a rabbit ear TV antenna on our house. While I stood on the roof to rotate the antenna, Sid watched the TV screen and yelled up to me to tell me if the image was getting better or worse. Our neighbors, who had been observing us with great amusement, invited us to watch the game on their TV, which had excellent reception via cable. Of course, being proud of our high-tech installations, our male egos did not allow us to accept the invite. So instead, we watched the game, which was barely visible, being played in what looked like, on our TV, like a blinding blizzard, although actually it took place in Miami. Sid excelled in math in high school and showed his competitive spirit by always besting my math region exam scores by at least a few points. He did, however, once get sent to detention by a teacher who claimed he whistled in class. As soon as my mother found out, she immediately went to the principal and informed him that Sid had been falsely blamed because, in fact, Sid didn't know how to whistle and never learned. Sid majored in accounting at UB, and although rarely studying, passed the CPA exam on his first try. After working for a short time at a large accounting firm in New York, Sid was drafted into the Army and then completed officer training school. The Army, in its inexplicable wisdom, ignored Sid's valuable accounting expertise and instead assigned him to command a detachment doing vehicle repairs and maintenance, something for which he had no experience or aptitude. Fortunately, the NCOs under Sid were expert mechanics and did not need his input, so he was able to spend most of his Army career playing golf and base and softball. Sid had the ability to quickly make calculations in his head that required a calculator or computer for the rest of us. As a result of his numeracy skills, along with his sharp intelligence, good judgment, and considerable knowledge, Sid established himself as a highly respected and successful accountant known throughout the Buffalo region. I know that many of his clients, colleagues, and business associates are here today and can attest to how much they valued Sid's advice and counsel. Sid's computational talents were also very useful when he played the stock market, as well as the games he loved, including bridge and poker, which he often did in person with friends and sometimes played all night long on the internet. First and foremost, Sid was a loving and supportive member of our extended family, not only to Linda, Becky, and Jolie, as they will tell you, but also to our parents, to Irene, Laura, Jen, and me, and to our aunts and cousins. One of my favorite photos of Sid shows him holding a laundry basket containing a newborn Laura and looking at her with an expression on his face of tenderness and wonder. This past April, I realized that for the first time in 60 years, I had to prepare my own tax returns to file with the IRS. Sid had generously always done this for us and our daughters, even though it was during his busiest time of the year at work. Sid and Linda took wonderful care of our parents when they moved to Buffalo and made great efforts to attend bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, weddings, funerals, wherever they might occur. Our families met regularly in Poughkeepsie, Buffalo, or Mystic for birthdays, Seders, Hanukkah, July 4th, etc. We're going to miss them.
What beautiful recollections. Thank you. We're now going to have a colleague and friend, Howard Gondry, to address us, tell us a little bit about his perspective on Sid.
I'm glad he went first because some of my remarks might be in context now. Lasting friendships are rare and deeply felt. Our memories of Sid and our continuing close relationship with Linda will last our lifetimes. Sid and I met when we were both students at the University of Buffalo. We were fraternity brothers at Alpha Bi Omega. I met Linda because she was then dating Sid. Linda was Lillian, my wife's Lillian's sorority sister in Alpha Tau, Sigma Tau at Buffalo State. Linda and Sid were our matchmakers. They also brought another couple together. Lillian and I have been happily married for over 50 years. Sid and I were both nominated to serve as president of our fraternity, which was Alpha Phi Omega. We're the only two candidates, and in one ballot, there was a tie between the people who voted. We found out that I had voted for Sid and that he had voted for me. My point in mentioning this is that we both cared more about each other than we cared about serving as president. Sid, by the way, was elected. Later, at Sid and Linda's wedding, I was one of Sid's attendants. When Lillian and I were later married, he then returned to Buffalo to be part of our wedding party. During that visit, he was looking to change jobs because he had been previously, as you heard, in New York City. And I introduced him to my employer, and he was hired. Sid and Linda moved back to Buffalo so he could work at Phillips Werban and Company. This was before he went out and worked on his own with a firm. The four of us have been friends for all our adult lives. we did have some common interests. Significantly, Sid and I were never golf buddies, and Lillian never misses a chance not to play bridge. So we happily went together, however, to many musical presentations, some in Chautauqua. We shared a pullable vacation trailer for several years, but usually took separate vacations with it. The Weisses used it a lot more than we did. Each couple has entertained many times at home each other. We hosted Sid and Linda at our Chautauqua farm. They've hosted us in Arizona. We have celebrated many family moments together, particularly respective family events, including children's birthday. Sid helped Julia and Ian make their first smallmouth bass catch in our pond in Chautauqua. Sid was a quietly generous person, generous to both his family and friends. We know that we have all been touched by Sid, who quietly and calmly helped many of us by his good works and example. We all have memories of Sid which will last for the remainder of our lives. Please share them with your own family and friends.
Barbara is going to offer words from her husband, Lee Singer, who's a good friend. Oh, maybe both of them are coming up.
Maybe I'll try. This is not going to be easy for me. I'm a little not accustomed to speaking in front of large gatherings. I'll tell you a few things about my dear friend Sidney. We've been friends for 41 years. We met in 1983 when I joined the Westwood. This is normal.
These are Lee's words. He wrote it. I didn't look at it. So I don't know what's in here till just right now, but he is a crier, and I knew he couldn't do this. So these are Lee's words. I would like to extend my condolences to Linda and the whole Weiss family. As many of you know, I'm not accustomed to speaking in front of large gatherings. I can get emotional and start to weep, and this is probably not the time for showing my emotions on my sleeve. I may have to let Barbara deliver this eulogy for me. That's why we never divorced. You can't live without me. I would like to tell you a few things about my dear friend of 41 years, Sidney. Sid and I met in 1983 when I joined the Westwood. I knew Larry Scheuer, and he asked if I would like to join his Saturday group. The group was Sid, Dr. Barry Weinstein, Larry Scheuer, and myself. This was the first time I met Sid, and so it began. On Sunday mornings, our group was Herb Weiss, Sid, Barry, and I. We played golf a minimum of 3 times a week, as well as lunch, after, and stayed for dinner after. The competition for handicap was between Barry and Sid, as they were serious golfers, and I was the comic relief of the group. No matter how hard they tried to make me a better golfer, it never worked. Sid never had a hole-in-one, and it upset him that I had 2 of them. One was in the Jewish Center tournament on the 7th hole with a net score of 1 for a foursome, as Sid was the only one in the group that didn't get a shot for the hole. I was then asked to sub in the Monday Night Business Bowling League with Sid, Barry, Mike, Larry, and Joel Ross. This lasted for 2 years as our ages caught up to us and we all had bad knees. Along with the golf, we had a weekly Thursday night poker game with about 8 men. Sid, being an accountant, always tried to figure out the odds on every hand, and when he lost a hand, he got upset. When I was in need of an accountant, I asked Sid if he would like to become my accountant. That was the real start of a very long and dear friendship. As I grew, I came to respect Sid for his knowledge and his advice. Sid's antics on the golf course were well known because of the intensity of which he played. I don't think any professional golfer had as many sand wedges and putters as Sid did. He once kicked an empty styrofoam cup down the second fairway, taking out his frustrations on the cup. As many of his golf peers remember, Sid was a long, straight hitter until he got near the green. He was known to shank right on chip shots. As I well know, I almost got hit, and from that point on, I never stood on his right. When Sid got really ill, I was available to take him to Roswell for many of his treatments. Until Sid left for Arizona, we spent many hours reminiscing about all our good times. I also want to mention that Larry would fly in from Florida once a month to have lunch with Sid and I. It really brought a smile to Sid's face to see him. Also, thank you, Barry, for joining Sid and I for our lunches during Sid's treatments. I will sorely miss my friend and will fondly think of him whenever I'm on a golf course. That's it.
That's it.
Good job.
Lee and Barbara, I just wanted to relay what Linda had said, how important you were on the team when Sid was going through his chemo. So thank you for your efforts on that. We're going to have a friend, Moises Sudet, to talk about Sid as well.
So I have nothing prepared. I was supposed to represent the golf buddies for Sid, which are sitting over there. As you can tell, English is not my first language. So if there is an issue, Gary Joseph will translate. It is so bad that I was telling them yesterday I was going to give a eulogy, and I said urology. So I met Sid when I moved to Buffalo to join UB as a faculty in 1987. And Sid and Linda have been part of our lives, our bar mitzvahs, our weddings, every time since. When I asked about who would be my accountant when I moved to Buffalo, I said, I need somebody that I can sleep at night in case the IRS wants to audit me. And a couple people said, Sid, until I saw Sid in the golf course. And I will tell a couple of stories about that. But Sid has been wonderful over the years. We served together in the Independent Health Board for many, many years. And I cannot tell you how much we miss him and we love him, especially my wife. Every single time, my wife will tell me, why can't you be like Sid? I've never been jealous in my life, but Sid was one that I was jealous about. She really, really loved him dearly. Since I represent golf, my buddies of golf, I had to tell you a couple of things about golf. First of all, one time Sid and I were playing, and I see him in the putting green with a 3-wood. He was so bad at putting that he would putt with his 3-wood. That's number one. And somebody asked me, what do I think about Sid in the golf course? I said, Sid reminds me of Hulk. Because when he plays terribly, he becomes green, breaks his thing, throws things out, he becomes like Hulk. We had a group of 20 people that used to go to Florida to play together. We've lost 3 of them, Jerry Gedner, Greg Lipsitz, and Sid Weiss now. 3 good guys. I'm sure they're playing now in great courses. So I want to tell Sid that we love him, we miss you, and Sid, don't forget the Polski. Thank you.
And we have another golf buddy, Mark Sexton, who also played with him, I think, in Phoenix.
Oh my God, the stories I just heard. Sid violent on a golf course? Upset? I've never seen that. 3-wood, he would use a 7-wood in Arizona, the putt. And I'm sure Dan has seen that once or twice. So, when Linda asked me to speak today, I was very honored. I told Linda and Jolie I needed about 30 minutes. Linda said 5, and we settled on 7. If you start to hear music or see Jolie or Dane approach me with a hook, you will know I'm running over. I have spent the last 3 weeks thinking and rethinking what I wanted to say, so here goes the final version. After listening to everyone speak today, and at the Shiva in December about Sid, I have to say I wish I had met him earlier. I met Sid 10 years ago in Glendale, in of all places, a golf course. You heard earlier about Sid's passion for golf, which was only outdone by his passion for his family. We met on the first tee at the Arrowhead Golf and Country Club, and thus began our friendship. Our twosome grew to a threesome when we met Tom Bach, who was a retired doctor, which served Sid well as he now had access to free medical advice. And a third opinion when he did not like what the doctor would tell him, or the second opinion Becky would give him. Our little group continued to grow, and we met new guys at the course, Doug Ward, Graham Moore, Ed Bates, etc. We would have started our own GA group, Golfers Anonymous, but we felt the meetings would interfere with our golfing. Everyone who met Sid liked him immediately. His wit and dry sense of humor was infectious. Sid had many accomplishments on the golf course over the 50 plus years he played golf. Imagine playing 5,000 plus rounds of golf over a lifetime and never getting a hole in one. Came close many times, but not a one. Imagine his reaction one Thursday afternoon when Linda came home from Arrowhead to tell him that she had a hole in one that day. We never heard the end of it. It might have been because we wouldn't let him forget it. Our friendship was year-round as we live across the border and would do a home-and-home golf outing during the year. My wife Susie and I and Sid and Linda spent time together going to Mexico, celebrating New Year's, anniversaries, going out to dinner, etc. When Sid and Linda could not make my 70th birthday back in October, Sid sent me a nice note where he called me a Mitch. Coming from Sid, I was honored. As I must be getting close to my 30 minutes, and time limit, I will close with the following thoughts. Sid left the world a better place. Sid and his family has and continues to make a difference in this world. And I am a better person for having had Sid as a friend. Thank you, Linda and family, for giving me this honor to speak about Sid, who himself was a Mitch. Thank you.
And lastly, I'd like to bring up Becky to represent her mom.
Okay, like Lee, my mother didn't feel like she would be able to get through this without lots of tears, and quite honestly, I'm not sure that I'm going to either. Okay, I'm gonna pull myself together so I can say a few words from my mother. All right. I would like to share with you a lesson you have all taught to me that I will cherish for the rest of my life. It is a very Jewish lesson, one that was taught by our rabbis from the very beginning and has been incorporated into our traditions. It is a lesson that we relearn often as we travel life's highways. I have been having these deep emotional reactions to the caring responses our friends have shown since Sid started his health decline. We have always had wonderful friends, but even his doctors were calling and visiting. His friends took him golfing, they'd stop by individually or gather around Sid as groups. They lightened his load and mine and were able to bring us joy during a difficult time. While I can't thank everyone, of course, I'd like to mention how much it meant to Sid and I that Lee would take time out of his schedule to get Sid to his chemo appointments and sit for countless hours at the house watching Sid sleep on the couch. Moises would bring Sid out on the golf course to play with the boys here in Buffalo, while Ed, Mark, and Graham would invite him to play in Arizona, even if it meant just having him drive around with them in the cart. Graham also sat with Sid at his deathbed, giving him his last laugh as he fell backwards in his chair, dousing Sid with beer. Mark drove Sid back from from Arizona to Buffalo on his last posthumous road trip, returning his remains to his favorite recliner in our living room. Mickey and Irene were there through it all, supporting us, making multiple trips from Connecticut to Buffalo and Arizona to spend some last precious moments with Sid, recollecting on family memories and good times. Countless people brought food. They spent time. They went out of their way to help. Sorry. They showed up. I stumbled across a book entitled The Amen Effect, Ancient Wisdom to Mend Our Broken Hearts and World by Sharon Rouse. I was hoping my mother would correct me, but I guess I'm glad you know the author. Okay, this book puts into words what all of you here and friends back in Arizona were teaching and sharing with Sid and our family. Knowing we were not alone, you helped to heighten our joy and lessen our pain. These connections, community, are so vital for our bodies and souls. They help us navigate moments of both heartache and joy. It does take a village. It's easy to show up during the moments of joy and celebration, but showing up during difficult times may take some of us out of our comfort zone. Doing so, however, helps us to learn more about ourselves, bringing unexpected comforts to our souls for both the visitor and the visited. You have all been there for us, both literally and figuratively. I think it was my second Jewish mentor, the first being Sid's mother, the second being Weiss, no relation, but we may as well have been, who taught me that as a Jew, one of the most important obligations we have is to go to the funerals of our friends and loved ones, to go to the house of mourning, bring the bagels, just be there. It didn't matter if they weren't my nearest or dearest friend. It was one of the most precious gifts you can give someone. Jewish text speaks of an ancient ritual, a pilgrimage that would take place on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, where thousands would congregate in a mass of humanity, entering the courtyard and circling counterclockwise around an enormous complex. But the sick and brokenhearted, they entered and walked around the circle in the opposite direction, every step against the current. Each person walking by those in need would stop and ask, "What happened to you?" The responses, of course, were different. "I found a lump. My husband left. My wife died. I just feel lost." And those circling counterclockwise, each one of them would look into the eyes of the bereft and the bereaved and say, "May God comfort you. May you be wrapped in the embrace of this community." 2,000 years ago, the rabbis understood with profound insight that we need to show up in the good times and in the bad. Coming together makes something beautiful. You have blessed our lives. Excuse me. You have enriched us and held us up each step of the way. Sorry. Thanks for making me do this, Mom. Okay. You have blessed our lives. You have enriched us and held us up every step of the way, in good times and in bad. Please know how thankful we are that you're all here today and every day. You're loved. You're cherished and loved. Hugs, Linda and family. Sorry, didn't quite get through it.
Can you feel Sid here with us? I love this. And I love and appreciate Linda, who helped to put all this together. Sometimes it's hard. She was all the way over there, I know, with her children and grandchildren in Arizona, but her Buffalo home was important to her and to Sid. And I know that we've been waiting a couple of months to make sure this happened when weather was a little bit nicer. And it's appropriate. This is the day we do Holocaust Memorial, and Sid was so active and helped to create that community. Want to just say Linda is really a heroic person. She went through the last few years when Sid was really struggling. He was in and out of hospitals, and she was always there. And she was able to do that because of her wonderful team, her daughters and grandchildren, and brother-in-law and all the extended family around her that gave her strength to go through that and gave Sid strength. Having seen Sid make that journey, which was not an easy journey, he was extremely determined. It took his daughter Becky telling him, no, this is basically as far as you can go with your treatments. He would have kept going. He had to actually have his doctor show him the CAT scans and everything to confirm that there really is not a point in going forward. But that's how determined he was. Not, I think, just for his own self, but also so that he would be there for his family. And what a beautiful story that he died on Hanukkah, surrounded by his family, in a good time where they exchanged gifts and were able to be there, and he died quietly and peacefully. I know for me, he was a mentor and a friend, and someone who was what represented our community so well, because it was never about him, it was about his duty to others, to making things a little bit easier. And what a wonderful family. You've already heard the stories that he leaves behind. People that will continue to share his memories, continue to share those stories. And I heard about this 17th hole, where there's a little plaque which had against the rules of the golf course, I guess, but it's filled with expletives. Linda was trying to show me this plaque, but I thankfully I couldn't even see it. It was because I don't actually want to know what's on this. Again, that was a part of Sid I didn't know about. I just really want his memory. Let's continue to share stories, and he will continue to be young in my mind, young at heart, and always there for us whenever we need it. May his memory be for a blessing. We are going to invite you to rise for the two memorial prayers. For first, El Malei Rachamim, the prayer for the departed. His Hebrew name, Nachman Simcha ben Yitzchak.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Hamaramim, Hamseh Menucha Nechana, Taka Kafeh HaShechina, Him Kedoshim Utorim, Kezarakia, Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Nachman Simcha ben Yitzchak, Shehalach le'olamo. Bal harachamim yasirehu betzeter knafav le'olamim. Bitzro hachayim et nishmato Adonaihu nachalato v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to the soul of Sidney Weiss, Sid, the son of Isadora and Lillian, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge In the shadow of your wings, let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And we say, Amen. We're now going to recite the Mourner's Kaddish. Mitch has the prayer if you'd like. He'll come around. This is a prayer that's not about death, it's about life. It's a custom about 1,000 years in the Jewish community to sanctify God's name in honor of someone that's died. It would have been in generations of Sid's family, and we do it for him, and we've been doing it since December, but we'll continue throughout this year and in subsequent years, because we'll continue to remember him on the anniversary of his death, as well as holidays when he's most in our hearts. The prayer itself doesn't have a melody. If you're not familiar with it, you can look. There is a transliteration as well. So please join with us. Just raise your hand if you still need. Mitch is in the back, if you'd like. Okay. We'll recite it slowly. Yikadal v'yidkadash shemei Rabbah b'alma divrach hirtei v'yamlik malchutei b'chayechon v'yamachon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael b'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam omei almaya. Yitparak v'yishtabak v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudasha b'rechu. Leila min kol berchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechamata damiran b'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shlam Rabbah min shemaya. Chayim alinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imramein oseh shalom v'imramav hu yaseh shalom alinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. May God grant peace to Sid, to all those who mourn, and comfort to all the bereaved among us, and peace in our world. And we say, Amen. You may be seated.
On behalf of the family, thank you again for your attendance here this afternoon to honor Sid in a loving, rememberable way. The family does invite everyone who is here to a reception in the social hall behind the sanctuary. Everyone is cordially welcome. The family will be observing a period of Shiva at Linda's home at number 10 Heritage Road East in Williamsville. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. there will be an evening minyan. Again, that's number 10 Heritage Road East in Williamsville with a minyan at 7 p.m. tomorrow evening. Again, on behalf of the family, thank you again, and the reception is in the social hall right behind the sanctuary. May we all go our way the way Sid would want us to, in good health and in peace. Thank you.